Shamima Begum, I suppose if it's not Labour's revolving door, the other big story of the week has been the story of the runaway ISIS bride. Today's line is that the family of Shamima Begum want to bring her newborn son to the UK and raise him here, pending her appeal to reinstate her British citizenship. As you will no doubt be aware, Begum was banned from entering this country and stripped of her British passport by Sajid Javid on Monday. However, her family's lawyer plans to travel to the refugee camp in northern Syria, where she's currently living, to bring home her son, who I think is 5 days old. I think his name is Gerard. The family are exploring, or at least we're told are exploring, all legal and practical options to gain custody of Gerard while Begum's case goes through the courts. Sajid Javid had previously stated, and legal experts have confirmed, that Gerard is still British despite his mother losing her citizenship, as he was born while she was still a legal national. And while theoretically he could also have his citizenship revoked, the government would need to show that he himself posed a threat. And I'm not sure yet that the UK government would sink to the level of claiming that a 5-day-old baby could pose a national security threat.
Sajid Javid's lawyers are working on that as we speak, I'd imagine.
Well, yes. I mean, the real concern for those of you who don't want her back in this country is the legal basis under which Sajid Javid, the Home Secretary, has been operating. He was roundly criticised yesterday, not just by opposition politicians, but by many of those on his own benches. Reman Cheshti, former Tory deputy chair.
A lot of right-wing people
and not happy.
Think
she's our problem and she should come home.
Yeah.
One of those who's been critical of Sajid Javid is the Lib Dem Home Affairs spokesperson, Sir Ed Davey, and I'm delighted to say he joins us on the line now. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Let's deal with Gerard, the 5-day-old son, first of all. It looks like, if I'm gleaning all these reports correctly, it looks like he will be able to come back to this country.
Well, I should hope so. I mean, he's a British citizen. He clearly, as you were saying in your introduction, is no security threat to us. And we have a responsibility. I actually think it goes beyond the little baby boy. Because Shamima Begum is British-born, she's a British citizen, and she's a British responsibility. And what I don't get in what I think is an unlawful decision by the Home Secretary, what I don't get is whose responsibility does the Home Secretary think this woman is? You know, if you're going to take on problems like this and going to deal with the terrorists and terrorist threats and people who encourage and support terrorism, then you shouldn't just hand it over to someone else. You should actually step up to the plate and take on your responsibilities. And the Home Secretary is failing to do that.
It's quite complicated because we hear the Home Office's argument, I believe, is that because Begum's mother was born in Bangladesh, her daughter is entitled to dual citizenship, but she's never taken it up. And the Bangladeshi Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I believe, has said, she's not a Bangladesh citizen, which would mean that she is. You're not allowed under the terms of the Geneva Convention to strip people of their citizenship and leave them stateless, and that appears to be what Sajid Javid has done.
You're absolutely right, and I asked on this in the House of Commons earlier this week, and I made the point that just last November, the Home Secretary lost a case in what's called the Special Immigration Appeals Commission, so judges looking at it, where he actually was, to be fair to the Home Secretary, was his predecessor, had tried to take away the citizenship of 2 terror suspects on the same grounds, saying, well, they got Bangladeshi parents, they got the Bangladeshi by descent. And British judges said, no, that's wrong. They don't have automatic Bangladeshi citizenship. Bangladesh won't give them citizenship, so they are British citizens. And you, Home Secretary, can't wash your hands of them. You can't make them stateless. So my point is this. The Home Secretary lost just last November a case on exactly the same grounds. There's probably a stronger case than the one we're talking about. So he must know he's acting unlawfully.
If you'll forgive me, the question I want to put to you, and I don't want to spin your views too much, but Kevin and myself throughout the week have been saying that it's the classic line where you see, in this case, a Home Secretary playing into the hands of, say, the Daily Mail or the more right-wing press. I'm taking a strong action. I will not allow this young woman into the UK. All the right-wing press go, oh, marvellous, marvellous, well done. And in 2 years' time, when eventually we go through all the different legal processes and find out that ruling is is illegal, he'll be long gone, although he might actually be a possible leader, I suppose, if that's why he's doing it for. So why do you think he's taking such a strong and yet possibly fatal line here?
I think you've said it. I totally agree.
You think he's playing to the papers?
It looks... I can't see any other explanation, because the law is clear. There's precedent, very recent precedent, to say this woman can't get Bangladeshi citizenship. The law is clear that if she doesn't have another citizenship, you can't make her stateless. And I think you're right. What he's calculating that he makes a nice stand now, gets lots of plaudits, Tory backbenchers pat him on the back. But in a few months' time, 2 or 3 years' time, when we've gone through all the legal stages and he loses and he's shown to have acted unlawfully, he's long gone. I think that's really cynical.
Okay.
I don't like that type of politics. I think it's wrong.
I'm going to come back to Shamima Begum as an individual in just a moment, but we're also aware, depending on the numbers you hear, 6, 7, 8, I've even seen 900 potential terrorists or ISIS supporters that may be coming back to the UK. Fewer, I think, than 1 in 10 is prosecuted in this country. And I notice your colleagues in the other place have been calling for the 650-year-old Treason Act to be updated to enable better prosecutions of those who come back.
Well, I have to say, I think people need to get real. The reality is, when people come back here, they should be investigated. And if they've committed a crime, they should be prosecuted and put in prison.
Right.
However, if we're going to tackle the problem, the scourge of ISIS and any other organisations like it, we've got to learn. And we've got to learn from people who've gone through that experience, been brainwashed, somehow been radicalised. And the best people to find out about why it happened and what happened are these people. And I'm actually interested in keeping our country safer. Rather than playing to the headlines, I want to know how to improve national security. And here you have a huge opportunity to interview quite a few of these people, to really actually grill them.
Yeah.
And if they've done something wrong, put them in prison. If they haven't, use that intelligence to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Would updating the Treason Act be useful, in your opinion?
I don't see why. I mean,
it's quite peculiar, isn't it, when we're talking about updating a 650-year-old law in order to deal with the problems posed by supporters of Daesh. I have to say, sorry, Kevin's trying to get in here.
I was just going to say, Ed, that as the caliphate kind of disintegrates, it's on its last legs, the Shamima Begum situation, I think, is going to crop up time and time again.
Yeah.
We're going to have more and more sort of stranded Brits wandering around the Middle East. In terms of national security, wouldn't it actually be better to get these people back here, process them legally, and to keep our eye on them closely?
Well, again, you're making my point from it. I couldn't agree more. It's not just British citizens there are Dutch citizens there are French citizens there are German citizens there. Are we going to say that every single country's got citizens there and just going to leave them there? I mean, what level of responsibility are we taking? And, I think our country is a fantastic country. We've got the resources, we've got the legal processes, and we're much more likely to reduce the threat of these people doing something wrong here or anywhere else in the world, but by taking and using that approach. And to be honest, I think we've seen some successes with some of these people who've returned.
But we've also seen failures as well, though, haven't we, Ed? We've had people return who've gone on to commit acts of terror in this country.
Well, I think they're very few and far between.
They are, but they still have, and it's not much comfort to those who are victims.
Yeah, but I mean, there are people who go to prison for serious offences. They serve their term, they come out, and regrettably, they do the same thing again.
Yes,
and it's an issue which we have to deal with all the time. It's not a new issue, and the real challenge is how do we try to rehabilitate people, to try to get them to mend their ways? How do we stop reoffending? This is probably not just an issue with these returnees, it's the issue in the prison service. And what I have a real problem with this whole government's policy is that it's not reducing reoffending, because it's taking the wrong approach on so many levels. And whether it's returning from Syria or youngsters who are going off the rails, what I'm interested in is how do I make sure we stop them reoffending and we make our country safe. and the government's policies aren't working. That's why Liberal Democrats say British people deserve better and we should demand better from the government. And why are they pursuing policies that have failed?
Can I ask, just by way of conclusion, I said I wanted to return to Shamima Begum as an individual, and actually I wanted it in relation to her son, Gerard. It seems very difficult to believe that this country could bar Gerard from entering the UK. However, how a 5-day-old baby gets to the UK is a different matter. Do you think we as a country may be looking to bring Gerard into this country but keeping his mother out of the country? And what would be your thoughts on that? Essentially a newborn baby separated from their mother.
Well, that doesn't look very sensible to me. I think we need to bring them both back, because I think to do otherwise wouldn't just be wrong by the baby, which has got to be a key consideration. I think it would be unlawful. And what I do think is, this is a 19-year-old woman. She's said some awful things. She's done some awful things. She should face justice. And she should go before a British judge and have to answer for what she's done. But we also need to understand, when she went there, for whatever reason, she had got radicalised. Her family say they tried their best to stop her, but for some reason she went off the rails. If we don't understand that and learn from it, it's going to be another young person going off the rails in the future. So what do you want to do? Do you want to really take action that's meaningful, that stops terrorism, or do you want to play to the gallery like the Home Secretary? And it just seems to me a little bit of common sense needs to be applied here, rather than some political posturing.
Sir Ed Davey, lovely talking to you. Satisfied with that, Kevin?
Well, I think Ed's right. I mean, I just think that Sajid Javid is abrogating the legal responsibilities of this country.
A tweet, name's Charles Baker here, if indeed that is his real name. I'm confused, Matthew. Just as Shamima Begum's son is automatically British, is she not automatically Bangladeshi on the same grounds? And of course, the difference is there that Bangladesh has its rules as a sovereign nation, and we have ours.
And she has to apply as well. She hasn't never done that. She's never been to Bangladesh.
That's what I'm saying. It's Bangladesh's rules. That's why there's the disparity there.